I hate when I massacre names, but I'm gonna massacre nouns. Agilel, maybe. I'm not sure, but we'll try. But you wrote a very interesting email here, and thank you for listening to the podcast. All right, I wanted to ask you guys about Gotham.
Okay.
I'm surprised more people aren't talking about how god awful the show is. Strong words. I feel like I should preface this by saying I'm a huge Batman fan, but I'm also open to new and interesting interpretations of anything. They could have decided to have Bruce's parents abducted by aliens for all I care. I don't know. That's interesting. If it was written and acted well, I could watch it. I honestly don't see a single element of the show that doesn't leave me scratching my head. From Jada Pinkett Smith's terrible Eartha Kitt impression to Jim Gordon constantly scowling at everybody in the city, there seems to be a fundamental problems with the show, but nevertheless, it appears to be doing very well in the ratings. I have 2 questions for you sage TV gurus. What is your impression of the show's acting, plot, and script? And do you think that once the novelty of the show, that it's a Batman TV show, runs out, that it will last past a second season? I'm going to skip over your one example of a scene you don't like for brevity's sake. Thanks for all the entertainment and news you guys provide. Much love to you guys, Shakma.
Oh, Shakma.
So that was very
nice.
sweet there.
Strong
words here.
Let's tackle facts, the ratings first. Like, what do you think about? Yeah.
Well, the ratings. So it started out very strong.
Yeah.
It has dropped through the season. Not drastic. Not like, oh my God, we're in trouble. But it's dropped down into a more sort of level place. We'll see. You never know how these things will go the second season. I mean, Sleepy Hollow was an interesting case for Fox, where the first season did very optimistically for them, and they gave it a very early renewal. And season 2 really struggled in the ratings to a point that I'm actually I can't really even explain that one, because while I do think season 2 was a drop down in quality, it wasn't to the point where I can understand that many people bailing on it.
It's interesting because at TCA's at the executive session, the mandate given to Sleepy Hollow was to become more episodic.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully gain back an audience that way.
But you never know. It's like, what meetings are happening at Fox now? Because a few weeks, that was the week Empire had premiered, or second week. And now we're in the world of Empire, the juggernaut.
Growing and that's super can't serialized. Be stopped. Yeah, it's very serialized. It's a soap opera.
Yeah.
I mean, it is really a soap opera. One thing leads to the next. But with Gotham, the mandate was keep doing what you're doing. It's working, and if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah.
It has dropped off a little bit. I mean, just in our little world, I have seen interest in the series wane some amongst our audience.
Bruce Wayne? Sorry,
Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
It has dropped off a bit for our audience.
And then it spikes. Here's
when the Joker shows up.
Right, which is a mixed message that we all send.
Yeah.
Because I don't think Gotham is awful. I would think that, to me, that's overstatement. I think Gotham is really messy, and hasn't found its center of what it is,
I agree.
And that's its biggest problem, I think, is I think it's trying to be a lot of things at once.
And I thought that, even just from, I think that we had a conversation about the pilot and said just that, and I think it's still true today, where it was trying to tackle multiple tones at the same time and wasn't quite sure where it wanted to focus. And I still really feel that each time I watch an episode, I'm like, I'm not exactly sure what you want to do tonally. There's a world in which I understand what you're saying about sort of the writing and the performances, which is very heightened.
Yeah.
Very. There is a world in which that makes sense. There is a tone of a series in which that makes sense. I'm not sure they have nailed it yet, though.
I think it's just because everything's being approached from different ways, so you don't quite get what is the show trying to be? Because there are good and even great elements to Gotham, but it's just, I want them to scale back. That's the thing. It's like, I want them to scale back. I wish the show would be more focused on these cops and these crime bosses, with, on the outskirts, the idea that there's something weird happening in this town that could grow. But right now, it's the cops and the crime bosses, and now we're starting to get, every week, a prototype Batman villain.
And then watching the ones that we already have on the show kind of evolve and develop even more. And again, we've said this a bunch. It's not subtle, you know what I mean?
No.
If Selena and Ivy are dressing up, it's like she's in all green.
Oh yeah, what I want them to not do, and they've done it a lot unfortunately, is these characters are 90% there already.
Yeah,
it's
which
like,
doesn't give them a lot of room.
Right, like Edward Nygma is the Riddler.
He's the
just
Riddler
working for
right
the
now.
cops. Yeah,
he's just not evil yet.
Right, and so it's like there's not enough room for transformation, and that's why when they I wasn't part of the conversation you guys had about the whole Joker thing, but I was like, okay, if we are, and I know that they're being very cagey, but it's like if that was the Joker, he's the Joker. Like he just doesn't have white skin yet,
Yeah, the hair's not quite there.
Right,
the skin's not quite there, but otherwise, in every way, that is the Joker.
Yeah,
And
so that's why I hope that's not. And and so and performance-wise, like okay, let's even talk about Jada Pinkett Smith, who I actually really liked in the pilot.
I did too.
And was certainly heightened from the start, right? It was not being subtle, but in the pilot, I was like, okay, I get what she's doing, and this is really fun. Week to week, there are some weeks when I don't know. But I think that it, again, is a product of the show, and the show going to some very goofy places, but then playing some other stuff very serious.
Yeah, I think that, the thing is, my assumption about what she is trying to do, or her intention, is that she grew up and she clawed her way to the top, and she puts on this very affected air and mannerisms as a mask, kind of.
Yeah.
And that every once in a while the mask will drop and she'll speak in her own voice. And that's what,
like Batman.
Kind of like Batman. So I see that and I get it, but I don't think it always works in practice.
Right.
I agree. It's an interesting thing. We were talking about this, like there are shows that I actively am like, oh, I'm really excited to watch Better Call Saul this week. I'm glad I get to watch that and I'm going to review it, Gotham, I'm like, oh, I guess I'll watch Gotham because we'll cover Gotham.
Yeah, and right now I have 2 Gothams on my DVR. Yeah. It's like, and I always catch up, but I want it to be a show where I can't wait.
Yeah.
I was mentioning The 100 earlier. I want it to be like The 100 where I'm like, I'm freaking watching that.
I'm excited for this to come on.
Because there is, it is a Batman-oriented show, so it's like, and there is a lot of things about it that I should be loving, but I'm not loving yet. There are a lot of, again, I think if they scale back, it could all work. I still like, at its core, I like the, Gordon and Bullock dynamic. I still think, Robin Lord Taylor is excellent.
I love him.
He's great. And the idea of like watching the evolution of that character, because when the show began, I'm like, oh, I get having Penguin there from the start.
Sure, and you really thought, okay, we're going to focus on Penguin for this year, and that'll be really interesting to watch. Like that'll be this season's arc. It'll be about the Penguin, which it was and it was great. He was great to watch, and then that's just kind of been like shifted. To the side.
And now you start to be like, next week the Scarecrow, next week the Joker, next week Dollmaker.
I was like, we're still focused on Penguin, aren't we?
Right. And it's just like, relax, guys, because your Bruce Wayne is so young, who again I don't even think should be part of the show on a weekly basis. I think they should have had him. I understand it's beginning with the Wayne murder, but then I kind of wish they took Bruce off the table for a while. But he's a kid, so he can't. It's like they're promising things they can't deliver on. That's the problem. It's like. If next season Batman showed up, great, but he can't.
But he can't unless they do a crazy time jump. And then you have a completely different series. Yeah. It's Batman, the series.
Right.
Which
I know people would love, but I don't think they're doing that.
I don't think they are either. I think the plan was to do Gotham pre-Batman. They're like, eventually it's going to get so bad that Eventually.
I
mean, it's pretty bad right now. Like, how are they going to survive the next 10 some odd years before he's able to really, or more, before he's able to really be Batman.
So, look, the show is already renewed, which gives us a leg up that a lot of shows don't have. I hope they do kind of use, because I think this season. I don't know. I hope going to season 2, I want them to scale back, and I know that's hard. That's what I was saying about.
But they're not going to break a successful model.
They're not going to break a successful model, and I can't remember how the ratings correlate, but I can tell you, the week the Joker, whatever he was, appeared, we had a huge spike in the review of that episode that was bigger than it had been in weeks. As the show had started to fall, the readership for that week was like, bam.
Which happens. It happens. Any given show, even on, the week on True Detective that X big thing happens.
You get the jump.
You get the jump.
Right, but it's just with Gotham because it is so. I think it's very tempting for the creators to be like, oh, let's throw them this villain, you know.
Except that it's the villain, the bone that people will bite on is the Joker, right? Like they could bring in a number of other villains and people would be like, all right.
And they're kind of running out of the big Batman villains.
They really are. I mean, they're burning through them so fast, which is another thing that I'm like, slow your roll.
Yeah. I think we have now had a version of every Batman villain who has been in the movies except for Mr. Freeze. Well, I know Ra's al Ghul, but I think because of Arrow, they're not going to touch him. But Mr. Freeze, I believe they even said is coming.
That would be the weirdest crossover.
Yeah.
That would be the weird.
Arrow?
Like, he does not belong in that world.
No.
He would... I kind of want to see.
Well, I still want them to do a Crisis movie 5 years or 10 years from now that is like this insane movie with Michael Keaton and like everyone who's ever been, and Dean Cain and the cast of Gotham and Helen Slater and just
so weird.
The cast of the crappy Birds of Prey WB show.
Directed by I can never say his name. Inarritu.
Yeah. That's what I want.
Totally weird fever
Did you read
dream.
Michael Keaton interview
directed by David Lynch?
Michael Keaton interview in EW when Birdman came out?
No, the one that he was like...
The cover story. He basically said at the end where he's like, because they were talking about playing a superhero and all this. And
I know this one.
And basically at the end when he's like, look, I don't want to say anything because a year from now, if I'm sitting in a latex costume making a new... He was inferring Batman movie, which again, he was not inferring that anything was in talks, but I think it was more like, this is Hollywood. I'd be ridiculous to say I've never, ever, ever, because who the hell knows?
Who knows what I would do?
Yeah.
I'm Michael Keaton. I don't even know what I would do. I'm going to do Beetlejuice next year. I did hear this one, though, is that when Christian Bale, I don't think even really said this, but when it was interpreted that he said he was kind of jealous when he heard that Ben Affleck was cast as Batman, and they were like, oh, Michael Keaton, did you feel jealous? And he's like, no, you know why?
I'm Batman.
That
was badass thing you could say. Back to Gotham, wrapping up Gotham. Yeah, I don't know. I hope they can scale back, but that's a very hard thing to ever have people in Hollywood do.
I think the truth is that Sleepy Hollow is a good example of this, that unless the show is in true ratings crisis, they're not going to change.
Yeah.
They're going to keep doing what they're doing that's working. Why would they change?
Yeah. So, I don't know. To answer your question about, will it only last 2 seasons?
Working meaning effective, getting an audience.
Exactly, because that's a level of
two very different things, right?
Very different, yeah. So we'll see. I mean, we'll see how season 2 goes. If there was, Sleepy Hollow currently is in danger suddenly of renewal. We'll find out. So we can't speak for Gotham. We don't know. There is going to be a core audience, I think, that always shows up for it. So
there's something about the connection to that character in particular that really draws people.
Yeah, freaking Batman, man.
It's Batman.
People love Batman.